It's 12 minutes past midnight, and I'm rereading a rule nobody tells you about until you're already in it. If you run a personal development channel on this platform, once a month, apparently, you have to quote Tim Ferriss. I didn't make that rule, I'm just following it tonight. Here's the actual quote. On his show, he asks every single guest one thing. Name a purchase under $100 that changed your life or made it measurably better. I've heard him ask that so many times now that something in my chest tightens whenever it comes up. What I like about the question is that it's not asking you to buy a house or quit your job or move across the country. It's smaller than that. It's the kind of question that quietly admits most of what actually changes a life costs less than a nice dinner. So tonight, sitting here with my phone lit up in the dark, I stopped answering with one item and just kept typing. 1 turned into 3, 3 turned into 10, and somewhere around item 7, I realized I wasn't making a list anymore. I was making a confession. Item 1 on the list. A small tracker clipped to my keys. Nothing dramatic. No plot twist. Just a flat little disc I can call from my phone when I can't find them, which, before this, was most days. I want to start with the boring one on purpose, because the boring one is the one nobody ever tells you actually works. The keychain itself is almost embarrassing. There's an old Blockbuster keychain still hanging off it, from a video store that doesn't exist anymore, and then this white plastic square with a name that makes me laugh every single time I say it out loud. It's called Nut. 20 years old and I still giggle at it like I'm 12. Before this, I lost my keys constantly. Not once a month, not even once a week. There were stretches where I was tearing apart my apartment 2, sometimes 3 mornings in a row, already late, already sweating, patting down the same jacket pocket 4 times like the 5th time might be different. It never was. Now it just isn't a problem. Quietly, completely solved. Item 2 is smaller than the tracker, if that's even possible. A felt tip pen, 0.7 millimeters wide, the kind you'd find in any pencil case and never think about twice. Except this one didn't just change how I drew. It's the reason I make money with my hands at all today, which still feels strange to type out loud. I need to go back to being 25 for a second. At 25, I was curious about drawing, curious about tattooing, and genuinely not good at either one. That's the part nobody puts in the highlight reel. Not talented, not a natural, just a guy with a notebook full of drawings he was quietly embarrassed to show anyone. So I did something that terrified me. I walked into the shop of an artist I actually admired, a guy named Rick, and I asked him straight out how to get better. Not a class, not a course, just me standing there holding a folder of drawings, hoping he'd say something useful instead of just being polite. He looked through them and made a face. You know the one. The face people make when they're trying very hard not to tell you that you're not there yet. I've seen that face maybe 3 other times in my life, and every single time it meant something important was about to happen, if I could just sit still and listen. What he actually said surprised me. He didn't talk about talent or years of practice. He said I was probably using the wrong pen, that a ballpoint and a thin fine liner were exposing every tiny shake in my hand. A slightly thicker line, he said, would round those shakes out before I even noticed they were gone. He was right, annoyingly right. The thicker line hid the mistakes I didn't know how to fix yet, and for the first time my drawings looked like something I'd meant to do. That feeling, competence you can actually see on the page, is so underrated. Once you feel it once, you'll do almost anything to feel it again. One pen turned into years of practice, and years of practice turned into an actual career. I make my living as an illustrator now because of a $2 pen and one honest conversation. And typing that sentence into my phone tonight, I keep thinking about how close I came to never walking into that shop at all. Item 3 is the one that sounds the most ridiculous out loud. A small locking box for my own phone. I own a box whose entire purpose is protecting me from myself, and somehow, out of everything on this list, it might be doing the most quietly important work of all of it. It works exactly the way it sounds. You put the phone inside, set a timer for however long you can stand, press the lid down, and that's it. No unlocking early, no quick check, no 5-minute exception you talk yourself into. The phone is just gone until the clock says otherwise. I checked my phone 11 times in the hour before I sat down to write this exact entry. 11. I counted on purpose because I didn't believe myself. That's the addiction talking, and the only honest way I've found to finish my second book is to physically remove my own ability to reach for it. Here's the detail that actually got me though. There's a hidden internal battery inside the box, separate from the ones you can see. So even if you pull the batteries out to cheat the countdown, the timer keeps running anyway. Someone designed a box specifically to outthink people exactly like me, and it works. Okay, that's the easy version of the list. Here's where it gets a little more uncomfortable. Item 4 is a set of snorkeling gear, and I need you to know that I have been afraid of marine life for almost my entire life. Squid, sharks, fish, even whales. Not a mild discomfort. An actual, real fear. My brother-in-law is the reason this happened at all. He bought the gear himself. No real occasion, and just kept saying, come on, give it one shot. I was quiet about the fear that whole day, which in hindsight was probably obvious to everyone standing around me on that boat. Then we went under, and it was a completely different world down there. I saw sharks that day. Actual sharks. close enough to feel my heart doing something strange in my chest. And instead of the fear I expected, what I felt was closer to awe. I remember thinking, quite simply, this is stunning. That one afternoon turned a lifelong fear into an actual hobby I genuinely love now. I've since rewatched the entire Finding Nemo movie, something I always dodged for years, and I actually enjoy it now instead of flinching through it. Fish, it turns out, were never really the enemy here. Here's the part that surprised me most though. Once I proved to myself I could face one fear all the way through, something shifted, and I started circling the next one. Spiders, which is genuinely inconvenient when the country you live in seems to specialize in producing enormous, confident, extremely fast spiders. Item 5, and I'll admit I've mentioned this one before somewhere in this channel, and I'll probably mention it again someday. A specific kind of incense, the same one, over and over, because your nose deserves a ritual too, not just your eyes and your ears and whatever app is currently demanding your attention. There's something in the act of lighting it that says something to the rest of the room, and honestly to me. A small flame, a little smoke, and suddenly some part of my brain relaxes and says, okay, this space is good now. We're allowed to slow down here. Nothing urgent is happening. Everything else in my day is engineered to move fast. Notifications, deadlines, the constant low hum of things I should be doing right now. This is the opposite of all of that on purpose. A pause I chose instead of one that got forced on me, which honestly might be the entire difference. Item 6 is a Polaroid camera, and yes, I know exactly how that sounds, like a blogger from 2012. But stay with me here. If you're the kind of person who reads other people's notes apps too, stick around, I write this stuff down regularly. Now, back to the camera, because this one runs deeper than nostalgia. On an average day, I can take dozens of photos on my phone without even trying, and when I scroll back through them later, I find 30 near identical shots of the same moment, none of them quite right. The sheer volume cheapens every single one. Too many photos somehow, and none of them mean anything. The Polaroid does the opposite of all that by design. Each pack of film costs real money and only gives you a handful of shots, maybe 8, sometimes 10, and that scarcity changes everything. Suddenly every single photo has to earn its place, and I find myself actually thinking before I press the button. And because the photo prints instantly onto actual paper, it becomes a physical thing you have to find a place for, instead of one more file buried in a folder you'll never open again. It turns into this small monument to a friendship, or a night, sitting somewhere real instead of drowning in a camera roll. Because the film is limited, I only really pull the camera out for the occasions that actually matter, and for the people I genuinely love, which means every single photo I do have is already good before I even take it, just by virtue of who was standing in front of the lens that day. But the thing I love most, if I'm honest, is that none of these photos belong to the internet. Not one of them. Considering how much of my own life I already put online for strangers to see, having a small stack of pictures that stay completely offline feels like a quiet, private act of rebellion. Item 7 costs about $60 a year, which technically disqualifies it after year 2, but I'm counting it anyway because of what it did early on. It's a meditation app, and I want to be honest that when I first heard the word mindfulness, I rolled my eyes so hard it practically hurt. It was 2018, and my therapist at the time kept gently pushing mindfulness into every single session, until eventually she just told me to stop overthinking it and download the app already. I remember feeling almost defensive, like she was handing me a phrase I'd already heard 1,000 times and was tired of hearing. For weeks I just repeated the word in my head like a private joke. Mindfulness, 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 meaning absolutely nothing to me at all. But eventually, mostly out of exhaustion, I downloaded the app one night anyway and figured at the very least it couldn't make anything worse than it already was that year. So I started using it every single night before bed, no exceptions, and something actually shifted. My brain, which usually ran at full volume the second the lights went off, started slowing down instead. Not fixed, not cured, just quieter. Some nights that quiet was the only real rest I got all week. Item 8. And I already know exactly how this sounds. A guy who just mentioned incense and a meditation app is now telling you to buy a yoga mat. Yes, I'm apparently that person now, somewhere in his 30s, insisting cat-cow will change your entire life. And the annoying part is, it kind of does. Past the cringe of it, the actual practice does something real. My body stretches in ways it never used to. I've gotten noticeably more flexible, and there's this built-in reminder to just breathe, slowly, on purpose, instead of holding it the way I apparently do through most ordinary moments of my day. But here's the actual detail that matters. I see that mat maybe 50 times a day just existing in the corner of my room, and every single time it quietly says the same thing to me. You're only a few moves away from calm, whenever you actually decide to take them. Compare that to my phone, which I also see roughly 50 times a day, except that one says something completely different. It says you're behind, you should be posting, someone else is doing better than you right now. One object calms me down 50 times daily, the other one most days quietly wrecks me. Item 9 surprised even me when I first wrote it down. A board game called Chameleon, small box, easy to learn, and it actually won an award back in 2017 for Best Party Game. A board game changing your life sounds like a stretch, until I explain the actual reason it landed on this list at all. Here's the honest context behind it. I don't do drugs anymore at all, and I don't really drink either, except for the rare special occasion. That sounds like a clean, simple win when I say it fast like that. It took years to get here, and it wasn't nearly as clean as that one sentence makes it sound. Okay, that's the easy version of it. I quit drinking and things got better. Here's the actual version. The thing I lost first wasn't the buzz, it was the bridge. 2 glasses of wine at a cousin's house I hadn't seen in 10 years used to fill every dead silence for me. Take that glass away and all that's left is weather, job, family, haircut, and then nothing. So I went looking for a replacement, some kind of trick that could do what the wine used to do without the 2-day fog after. I didn't want advice, I wanted a tool. Something I could carry into a room full of near strangers and still feel like myself. Still be quick, still be liked, without waking up at 3 in the morning replaying every sentence I slurred. What actually worked was a board game which felt embarrassing to admit at first. It's called Chameleon, a game of categories and lying, cheap, small box, fits in a backpack. It gives a room structure the way alcohol used to, except nobody wakes up regretting it. Bring that instead of a bottle and suddenly strangers are laughing within 10 minutes, sober, and I'm not scrambling for small talk anymore. 10th thing on the list, and I'll admit this one broke the rule a little. It landed somewhere just north of $100, but the change it caused was too big to leave off. 2 small dogs, ink on my arm, ordinary looking, nothing flashy. I still catch myself glancing down at them mid-conversation, like they're checking in on me. They're from a book called Go Dog Go, the one I made my mom read to me on repeat as a kid, over and over until she probably had it memorized. I don't remember the plot, just the feeling. Dogs driving cars, dogs partying in a tree, total nonsense, total comfort. Getting them tattooed wasn't nostalgia for the story, it was nostalgia for being small enough that nothing hurt yet. I got them done at a little parlor called Hub Collective, and the timing made 0 sense. I had exactly 2 hours before a job interview and I still walked in and sat down in the chair anyway. Some part of me needed the ink more than I needed to look composed for a stranger behind a desk. I didn't think about the consequence of that decision at all. This is the part I keep avoiding when I tell the story out loud, because it's a little humiliating. 20 minutes into the interview I looked down and my sleeve was soaked through, blood seeping out from under the fresh bandage and onto a shirt I'd ironed that morning. I sat there answering questions about my strengths with blood on my elbow, certain I'd blown it completely. They hired me anyway. But I kept going back to that parlor anyway, job or no job, because something about the place had gotten under my skin worse than the needle had. I started talking to the couple who ran it, just small stuff at first, nothing that felt like it mattered. Weeks turned into visits, visits turned into friendship, and one afternoon they offered me something I never would have asked for directly, a way in, an apprenticeship. That apprenticeship is where I actually learned the craft. Hours spent watching, sketching, ruining practice skin, getting corrected gently for lines that wobbled. It's also the exact point where my art stopped being a private thing I carried around in a pencil case and started being something people paid me actual money for. The same hand that once could barely hold a felt-tip pen steady was suddenly holding a needle for a living. So that's the list, 10 things, none of them expensive, all of them somehow rearranging the direction I was walking in. I keep wondering what's sitting in your house right now doing that same quiet work without you noticing yet. If you've got something under $100 that changed what your life looks like, actually changed it, not just made a Tuesday easier, I want to know what it is. I know I'm going to get answers I never would have thought of myself. That's the part I'm genuinely curious about. Someone's going to say a $15 water bottle, someone's going to say a library card, someone's going to mention a specific song that cost 99 cents in 2010. Small, cheap, and somehow load-bearing for an entire life. Those are the stories I actually want sitting in the comments. One more thing then, an 11th item under $100, and I'll admit this one is a little self-serving. It's a book I wrote called Your Head is a Houseboat, and someone far more qualified than me once called it the most important and accessible mental health book in a generation. I don't say that to brag, I say it because I actually meant every page of it when I wrote it. So that's everything, 10 things, 1 confession about a bleeding shirt, and 1 shameless plug I regret nothing about. Thank you for actually sitting through someone else's notes app for this long, it means more than the view count will ever show. If you're new here, stick around, subscribe, tell me your own $100 item down below. Have a genuinely good day out there, and well, keep being glorious.